Hi there, welcome to Floating in Dreams. This is eyeshadow palette month, and today I'm doing a video, if I could keep only one. Let's get to it. Welcome to everybody watching today. Thank you so very much for joining me. Today I'm doing another video in eyeshadow palette month, and today we're talking about which eyeshadow palette I would keep from some of the brands I have in my collection where I have 4 or more eyeshadow palettes. That was my rough guideline. I definitely have brands where I only have like 1 or 2 things, or maybe a little less or whatever. So at first I was going for like 5 or more palettes, so I really had to make a choice. But I realized that would mean I would have to leave out some of my favorite palettes. So I was like, no, I'm gonna have to talk about some other brands in here as well. So I made it 4, and I think I did pretty good selecting like my favorite one of each one. Maybe there are surprises here, we'll see. So let me just get to this video. Before we get into it, I would like to introduce myself for people who may not be familiar with the channel. My name is Micah. I've been a content creator for more than a decade. I have fair skin with a cool to neutral undertone, and eyeshadow palettes make a regular appearance here on the channel. So if that's something you would like to see more of, then maybe you would like to consider subscribing. So I don't really have any particular sort of organization here. We're just gonna breeze through these palettes. I've got quite a lot here, so I think there's like 25, maybe 30 palettes here, so I'm just gonna race through it because these are my favorites, and I can talk about my favorite eyeshadow palettes for a long time. First up, Zoeva Melody. I have actually been doing regular videos every single month in the past year where I do a palette battle. So I take a brand where I have plenty of eyeshadow palettes by, and then I decide from all of those palettes what is my winner. So this one won in the Zoeva round. I did Pat McGrath and Natasha Denona, so my winners from those brands are also going to be in this video, I guess. So that's been a good guideline for me, choosing which is my favorite one. But yeah, the Melody from Zoeva has been my favorite for a while now. I tend to go back and forth with my Zoeva palettes, which one is my favorite, because I really enjoy these. I know they're discontinued, but the Melody is so good if you have fair skin. This is what the color story looks like. We have some of these like mattes here. We have some really good light shades. This here is a duochrome. So this just has some really good shades in, and I really appreciate this palette. I know this is gone, and I'm so sad that I'm kicking things off on that foot, but I have plenty of eyeshadow palettes you can no longer buy, and it's just one of the things where I'm like, yeah, I'm still really happy with this. I go back to this from time to time. I love using it till this day, so this is definitely my pick for Zoeva. I also have plenty of indie brands in my collection, and a brand I have been collecting quite a bit, you could say, is Fantasy Cosmetica. I think there are only 2 palettes from Fantasy Cosmetica I don't have, and I'm at that point where I'm like, do I want to go Pokemon Gotta Catch 'em all, and I'm also going to purchase the 2 I don't have? Or am I just going to stick to the things I have? I'm currently still on the sticking to the things I already have train, but my favorite one by the brand is the Rogue. This was released, I think, about a year ago. This is so pretty. It's blues, greens, and purples, so we all know I love that. We get 4 shimmers, 5 mattes, everything goes together. The shimmers are a little bit different in the sense that they all have a bit of a flippy kind of moment. They're very pretty duochromes, and that's one of the things I love about Fantasy Cosmetica. I love so many of their color stories, though, so it's hard for me to pick my favorite, but I think this is the one that really drove my love for Fantasy Cosmetica home, so that's why I'm selecting the Rogue as my favorite Fantasy Cosmetica palette. Another brand I really love is Kaleidos, and ever since they've been doing these little quads, I have been in love with them because they just do some really stunning things for sure. This is the Venus Trap, and this is from the last collection we got. My brain keeps thinking last year we got these released around the fall time, so will we get new ones? Will we get new ones? I hope we do, because these are some of my favorites, and this is just so pretty. This is light. They also do more intense things. If you have deeper skin, they do more colorful things if you like your colorful things. But I just love my little Kaleidos quads. This has everything I want. We get 3 mattes, a really pretty high shine shimmer, and I love how Kaleidos is like bridging the gap between East and West for me. I feel that they are very good at translating Asian beauty trends for the Western market, so That's something like, if you've been like eyeing up Asian beauty and you're like, that's not quite right for me, perhaps give Kaleidos a try, because they are really good at sort of like giving us like what Asian beauty has to offer, but at a pretty reasonable price point and more tailored toward Western trends. Another indie brand I have plenty of palettes by is Alien Cosmetics, now known as Earthly Cosmetics. I still call them Alien because a lot of my palettes say that, actually, because I mainly have their older things. I committed to trying something they released more recently, and I just didn't love it as much as something like this. This is the original Fall Magic. They still do a Fall Magic palette, but it's not this. I'm gonna have to disappoint you there. However, if you get the Fall Magic and the Sorcerer's Smoke, then I feel you get something that's really close to this. And this is one of my favorite fall color stories. This is so, so pretty. We get some warm things in there, but there's also pops of colors. It does have cool tones in here as well. I feel this is such a versatile little palette, and I love going back to this. This is such an amazing palette. It's got good shimmer quality, good blendable mattes, and I think Unearthly has really just upped their price point, but not the formula to match. I still love the older Unearthly formula a lot better than I do the new one. I seem to be the only person on the planet. A brand where I feel where the most recent things are definitely a little bit better than the older things. At least I only tried one older palette from Cosmic Brushes. I have the Serenity palette, their first one. But then they did the Winter Wonderland last winter, and you guys were tagging me in this on Instagram saying, I think you might like this. And you were very, very right. The minute this dropped, I was eyeing it up straight away. I bought it upon release. I don't often do that with palettes because I have so much, but this, purples, blues, greens, everything I want. It has 2 multi-chromes in, which are a nice touch. No, it's actually this one. Oh, yeah. It's this one and this one that are to do the multi-chromes. I don't need multi-chromes in a palette per se to like it, but I do really enjoy that we get some more shimmers in here. That was the thing I didn't love about the Serenity, was that we didn't get that many shimmers. But with this, we get plenty of shimmers. I think this is a lovely palette. It has so much going for it, and it has really nice blendable formula, really good shimmers that are easy to pick up with brushes, and I think the color story is just so yummy. A brand that is one of my favorites, and I have so many of their palettes, but if I have to pick my favorite, it's going to be the Cashmere from Viseart. I go back and forth between the Violette Étendue and this, I have to say, but I think this is my more universal, can work for every occasion kind of palette. So that's why the Cashmere is one of the better ones. This has neutrals, we have some rosy tones, we have cool tones, and we even get some warm tones in here. Everything goes together, which to me is a testament to how good this color story is, and I adore the Viseart formula. It's one of my favorites. Their mattes are super blendables, but still buildable. They're not, like, they don't produce fallout. It's so good. The shimmers are incredibly smooth, saturated, but easy to apply. They don't fall down your face throughout the day, so Viseart has one of my favorite qualities on the market for sure. And the Cashmere, color story-wise, is still really good till this day. So Cashmere from Viseart had to make the list. I also still have some of these like standard Sephora brands, and one palette. This is why I went from 5 palettes to 4, because I wanted to be able to include my Tartelette in Bloom. This is still till this day one of the best eyeshadow palettes for beginners, in my opinion. I've mentioned this all the time whenever I mention this palette. I don't reach for this a whole lot because I have so many other neutral palettes that I love, but I still think till this day that this has everything you need. If you just want one neutral palette in your collection, perhaps make it this one. You have warmer tones, you have neutrals, and you have cooler tones all in one palette. You only get 3 shimmers, but I feel like this just spells it out for you. It makes it so easy to make a look because every row just gives you exactly what you need to create a full look. Can you mix and match these? Also, yes. This is really lovely formula. I think that this is one of the best palettes ever created till this day. And I was like, I cannot do an if I could keep only one video without mentioning this. I always try to have something on my face that I'm also filming with that day, and today I am actually wearing this palette. Maybe you recognize it as this, but I kept the sleeve because it looks differently. I only keep sleeves and packaging if it actually adds anything to the palette. But this is the Love in London from BH Cosmetics. Rest in peace. I know this entire brand is discontinued. They did bring back some of the travel series before they closed down and they were taken over by Makeup Revolution, but not this one. And it's my favorite. It's my favorite BH palette for sure. And I'm wearing this shade here, this, and then these two. And I think I put a bit of Palace in the inner corner. So that's the look I did today. This is such a good neutral palette. It goes deep enough. You get some pops of color to make it a bit more interesting. And you get this taupe is just one of my favorites. You get some blend shades in here as well. I really appreciate this. I still, till this day, think this is a good palette. I do, now that I've used it again today, I am like, yeah, this is sort of like pre-pandemic makeup, you could say. So I'm not sure if it would still, if it were released now, whether it would still do really well. But I still appreciate the fact that I have this and that I can do like really stunning, pretty things that make me feel great. This is just eyeshadow that makes me feel great, and that's why it gets to go into the top spot for me for BH. We all know that I love myself a Melt palette, and I was like, I like the She's in Parties, I like the Mary Jane, I like the Gemini, I like the Merte. Like, I could pick any of my Melt palettes. Ooh, there's a hair. I could pick any of my Melt palettes and I would be happy with it being my number one. But I think the Mary Jane is the one I raved about the most. I think it's been discontinued. I could no longer find it when I went to link it in a video a while ago. Yes, it has the flaky shimmers which make the palette super messy, but this is such a good cool tone palette. It's dark and smoky for sure, but I love that we get these like greener, goldy tones here. This is light enough for me to set it up for the crease, so I can definitely tone the darkness in the middle of the palette down. These on the end make for some really good topper shades that just really give me exactly what I need. So I didn't mind the flakiness. I didn't mind the way this applied. I know that everybody loved it, but my Melt Mary Jane is one of my favorites in my entire makeup collection for sure. So Melt Mary Jane is definitely my top favorite Melt palette. Ask me tomorrow, it will probably be another one. Something a little bit more affordable. I'm not sure if the brand still does this. I think they do, but Juvia's Place, the Nomad. Can it get any better than this? I also love my Melt Gemini for the grungy green look. But if you're on a budget and you want the grungy green look for less, this has always been my recommendation and I stick to it. It is my favorite Juvia's Place palette. I still have a couple from way back in the day. I haven't bought a Juvia's Place palette for such a long time. But the ones I like are so unique in my collection till this day that I also don't feel like decluttering them. I go back to them from time to time. These have held up really well over time. They haven't gone moldy or weird or whatever. This is just really solid but still affordable eyeshadow, I feel. And this color story in the fall time, chef's kiss. So that's why the Juvia's Place, the Nomad, had to be the top spot right here. I also like some true drugstore things, but I actually realized that I don't really have 4 or more palettes from a lot of my drugstore brands, say from MUA, and this has been a very recent discovery. I've only discovered MUA as a brand in the past year. I went to England last year, found these little guys at Superdrug, and I liked them so much that I had to go out and buy more this year, but I thought I could stick to the original. This is the Andromeda Skies. This is the palette that made me fall in love with MUA. That's why it gets a mention here. And this palette it looks really dark and smoky, but it shears out so beautifully. We have 2 really intense shimmers in here that do require glitter glue. I'm usually not a fan of putting glitter glue on my face. If I don't apply these using glitter glue, they disappear. Like, not even like fall down my face, they just disappear into nowhere. No creasing, they just fade into nothing. But with a glitter glue, they stay really, really well. These are like, what, $2 or $3.99 at the UK drugstore? For the price point, this is excellent quality and I cannot fault it. Next up is the Menagerie Feral palette. If I want to go colorful, I tend to think of this eyeshadow palette in particular right off the bat. This is one of my favorites. But also when it comes to all of my menagerie, I feel, because I haven't, again, it's not a brand I've shopped from recently, but from all of my menagerie palettes, this is the one that's instantly in my brain as my favorite. Like, it doesn't even take me any effort to decide which one I would like to select. And this is what it looks like. These are heavy palettes because they have a magnetic base. These are removable pans, but this is the way it came to me. You get some neutrals with a pop of blue here. You get some pinks, a purple, a red, a yellow, and then these lovely greens. This has so many options. It's one of the best colorful palettes in my collection without it being a full-on rainbow. I'm not a huge fan of rainbow color stories on my skin tone. The primary colors of a rainbow don't really suit me very often, but these have like pretty in-between shades. The pinks and the greens go really well together. You can do a neutral color, like a neutral look with a pop of blue or purple on the lower lash line. The red and the yellow can very easily be blended together if you want to create an orange, and then having some of the complementary shades going like that. So incredibly versatile palette. It's a bit like a painter's palette to me. And I think that the Menagerie Feral is one of the best colorful color stories in my collection. Then I also enjoy some K-Beauty eyeshadow palettes. Again, with K-Beauty, I have a lot of one-offs in my makeup collection, but a brand that I have been buying quite consistently is Romand. And this is, I think, still my favorite Romand palette that I've tried. I have tried some more this year, and like 2 or 3 more, and I've enjoyed those as well. Like, it's so difficult for me to choose which Romand palette is my favorite, but this is one of my favorite K-Beauty brands, it seems, because I've tried one of their foundations now that I love. I've tried some of their lip products with it, which I love, and I love their eyeshadow. So this is just a really solid brand for me. And this is the Better Than palette in Dreamy Lilac Garden. This is so, so pretty. You get these really nice saturated, deeper shades to deepen things up, but essentially it's like a gradient from light to dark. I think that's so clever about these because they just make it super easy to use. In here, you get 3 shimmers, which I appreciate as well. A lot of K-Beauty palettes don't have a lot of shimmers, and if they do shimmers, they're really gritty, glittery, which is not my preference either. This one doesn't have it, and this one I think is one of the best Romand palettes I've tried. To my surprise, I actually have 5 Sydney Grace palettes now. I have 3 of the Temptalia collab, I have the Heaven on Earth, and I have this one. This is the Love's Journey, and this is one I didn't even purchase myself. A friend of mine sent this to me, saying, I think you might like this color story, and then it ended up being my favorite. Which I had not expected, because like, oh, it's just another neutral, boring color story. It's got cool tones, it's got neutrals, it's got warm tones, all in one palette. And I just really appreciate it if palettes do this for me because it makes it so easy to use. I love a foolproof palette, and this just gives me everything. This is a touch too spicy and warm tone for me. And even though this is the light version, because Sydney Grace does light and dark versions of all of their palettes, but very often it's just like 2 or 3 mattes that they change for a slightly different shade. And I wish they would do cool toned and warm toned palettes, because that would make it even more interesting. I feel like the same palette, but one that skews more cool toned and one that skews more warm toned. I think that would be cool from the brand. But yeah, I think the Love's Journey is like, it's the lovely Sydney Grace formula that I know I love in a really good neutral color story, which gives me all the different flavors of neutrals that I could possibly want. So Love's Journey is a really good one. I think a brand that a lot of people will have in their collection is ABH, so Anastasia Beverly Hills. I have decluttered quite a few of my palettes over time. I used to have the entire like rectangular collection in the same size as this, and I completely downsized my collection because it was just too overwhelming. I was reaching for most of the palettes only for like 1 or 2 shades, but one that has really stood the test of time for me is the Soft Glam. And you might wonder, Micah, why? Because you don't love warm tones. However, there's just something about this palette. It's the rosy tones. It's these 2 shades. It's this dusty rose inner like curry shade for me. It's this mulberry shade that really make the palette. I don't love these 2 shades though. These orangey tones, but the rest of the palette I'm good. I'm fine with the rest. So when I have to pick my favorite ABH palette, this would be the one. So Soft Glam by ABH is the one I would keep from all of my ABH palettes. Very recently, I did a palette battle with all of my Huda Beauty palettes, and the palette that came out on top was no surprise to anyone because the Rose Quartz from Huda Beauty has been one of my favorite palettes of all time anyway. So this is such a good one if you have fair skin. I believe it was discontinued recently. Like, I cannot really find it anymore if I go to link it, so that's a bit of a bummer, but I really like this. It has some warmth, but the rest of the palette is essentially cool tones. We get some mauve tones, we get the taupes, we have those like pinky tones, we have some purples. Yes, we get a weird ball, creamy, weird shade, but that can be used to intensify some of the shimmers if you want to. I do not love this in terms of like giving me enough shades to use as an inner corner highlight. I sometimes use like the lighter shade of this like two-tone shade to use as inner corner, but this is the only thing really I'm getting as an inner corner highlight, which is a bit of a shame. So for me, the Rose Quartz isn't 100% like perfect, but it's really, really close. I love the color story. I reach for this all the time, and this is such a good one, a staple in my makeup collection. A brand I discovered in the past year and a half is Gloss Gods. They are a Swedish indie brand, and they came out with the Gal on Jupiter last fall, and I was like, this is exactly me in the color story. We all know I love a cool tone, and that's exactly what we're getting here. Yes, this has a bit of warmth in, just a bit. It's a bit of a mustard leaning shade, but I just love all of these mattes. It just works so, so well. We get 5 mattes and 7 shimmers. This like silver looking shade is in fact a holographic shade, so it has this like multi-dimensional sparkle to it. I love this shade here. This taupe is stunning. This bronzy shade is really pretty. It just has so much going for it. I just really adore this palette. It's my ultimate cool tone palette, I think. I haven't done my ranking videos yet as I'm filming this, but my gut tells me that this will come out on top in my cool tone palette ranking because this is good. This is really good, and I really love the Gloss Gods formula. I now have 7 of their palettes, and I keep buying more because I just love the brand. I also have a bunch of Nomad palettes. I have a couple of these larger 18 pans, and I still have one of their smaller palettes as well, and it's not a tough decision for me to decide what Nomad palette is my favorite. This is the Ghost Town USA, and I just love this color story so much. And I ended up with an extra one. So if you want to win this, you can, because I'm currently doing a giveaway on the channel, and the palette you can win is this. And I love giving away some of my favorite products. In case you don't know that about me, whenever I do giveaways, I tend to give away some of my favorite products. So this is my favorite Nomad palette for sure, and that's why it's also in the giveaway. So the Ghost Town USA just has all the shades I want, really. Another brand I do have quite a few palettes from. I have 5 Lime Crime palettes, but I think my favorite one is this one. It is one I've selected in August to go back to and to do some looks with again. I hope I manage to do that before the end of the month, but this is what she looks like. This is why I ended up decoloring my ABH Mono Renaissance, because this has all the shades in, minus the weird, like, neutrals. If you want a full-on berry palette, this I think is still one of the best ones. It's got pinks, it's got a couple of peachy tones, but for the most part, like this like moody sort of berry section, that's what my eye is really drawn towards. I love this really dark shade. It's so good. It is a little bit gritty, but the Lime Crime Venus XL, to me, it's still a stunning palette, and I still rate this very highly till this day. One of my more expensive palettes is the Pat McGrath Mothership one Subliminal, but I think this actually came out on top when I did my Pat McGrath palette battle, and I keep recommending this. This is another great cool tone palette, and I think this is such a stunning one. It's so incredibly slept on. You do get a black in here. I kind of ignore these 2 shades a little bit when I use this, but I love all the other ones. We get 4 of the special shades. This is lovely, this is lovely, this is lovely. I love this shade here, but also this, the pop of blue for the lower lash line. So stunning. It's amazingly good quality. I think that Pat McGrath over time has definitely changed some things in the lineup, since this was one of the first ones she did. I'm not sure if the quality is still the same if you were to buy this now, but this blew my socks off when I tried it, and this was the palette that made me get more motherships. But I have decluttered some over time because color story wise, they aren't always quite right for me. But this one, very close to perfection. Then another palette that is no longer available, but since I get to pick my favorite one from every brand, I need to show you my favorite Odin's Eye palette, and it's the original Solomona. The very first one they ever did. They have done other Solomona palettes in recent years. This you can no longer buy. I believe the brand had to discontinue this because the pigments were no longer available. It happens. But this is still to me really, really good, and I have a love-hate relationship with Odin's Eye. Some of their palettes are really good. Some of them are a bit hit and miss for me. This is one of the good ones in my collection. It's warm tones, but then that pop of lavender is so out there, really, really, really different from any palette I have, and I love these two shades here. So the Odin's Eye Solomona is such a good one for me indeed. So I did go back to this again last spring and I fell in love with it all over. Another brand that I decided to make the number of palettes I wanted to select from like 4 and up, because else I couldn't feature Blend Bunny. I now have 4 of their palettes, but I think my favorite one is still the Surge. I did purchase the Longing, and my gut tells me that's going to be my favorite, but I haven't used it on my eyes yet. So I don't want to like jinx myself. I first want to try that palette, try every single shade, and then make up my mind. But the Surge I feel is still very special in my collection. A lot of people think I don't like Blend Bunny. I do like Blend Bunny. I think their formula is really good. But what I don't like is if we only get very few shimmers. This, however, has the unique selling point that it has a lot of color variation in the colors we do get. So that's why this still ends up being my favorite every single time. I think if Blend Bunny would commit to doing more of their gorgeous shimmers in their palettes, I would like them a lot better. But that's just me, it's personal preference, but I do think they have a really good quality formula. I love that they have the neons, then the row of shimmers, then these deep saturated colors, but they're not so deep that I can no longer use them. Then I have these really stunning row of midtones and the really light pastel leaning shades. So for me, this embodies exactly what Blend Bunny is all about. I believe they also ran into the issue of no longer being able to source these pigments. So this exact palette is no longer available, but I feel they do other things in their line that sort of give you this vibe, minus the neons, because I believe that was the issue. But I really like the Surge from Blend Bunny. This is now like, if I want to go rainbow, I kind of go this. Again, it's not a true rainbow palette, but I think if I think colorful palettes, this is another one that I have really high up here in my brain. We're in for the home stretch now. We have Natasha Denona here. We, of course, know that I have a lot of Natasha Denona palettes. I've reorganized most of them because the color stories are sometimes a bit bland. And then she released this, the I Need a Nude, and I was like, that is my perfect eyeshadow palette. That's a bold claim, I know. Very bold claim, but I think this is just so good. This has everything I want in an eyeshadow palette. It's got deep enough shades, it's got light enough shade, it has toppery things, it has different textures, it has slightly different undertones. But if I cover this up, you can see how neutral, cool toned it is. To me, this is a really good smack in the middle neutral palette that has a bit of warmth and a bit of cool tones, but it's not fully either one of those things, if you know what I mean. So for me, this is perfection. I have no need to be rearranging this one for sure. This is gonna stay as is because I just love this color story so much. And yeah, the Natasha Denona I Need a Nude, I just fell in love with instantly when I tried it. We also, of course, need to mention Glam Shop. I've got quite a few Glam Shop palettes in my collection as well, but the Tsimna Mocha, so good. I am aware that Glam Shop pretty much only does limited edition eyeshadow palettes, so they discontinue them really quickly. Once they run out of stock, they never restock them again. That's the story of this brand. So if you see something on that website that you like, you may want to snatch it up. But the Tsimna Mocha is such a good light color story for someone with my fair complexion. It's cool toned. I love this shimmer here. It's got enough depth. It's also light enough. It has a couple of like duochrome shades. That pink in the middle has a blue flip. We all know I love something like that as well. And this is just such a really good workable palette. I love the Glam Shop formula as well. Everything I've tried from them, I've pretty much loved quality-wise. I don't always love the color stories, and they do a lot of monochromatic things, which I wish they wouldn't. Then we have Clio Napping Cheese. This is another brand where I have 4 palettes. And I was doubting between the Over the Path and this one, and I was like, I want to select this one because I think this was my most successful one. This is another K-beauty brand that I rate really highly in terms of everything they do. Again, a brand where I've tried multiple products by. I love their highlighter, I love their foundation, I love their, they also have this like CC cream kind of product that I really loved. I love a couple of their lip stains, and I love their Pro palettes. These are their Pro eyeshadow palettes. I don't think they still are adding to this line though. That could be me. But the Napping Cheese, this I tried as part of my I'm into warm tones at the minute vibe. And this is so pretty. It's really cute because it comes with stickers, with kitties, and they're holding cheese. It's a kitty themed palette with cheese. I don't understand the combo really well, but it makes for something really cute. We have a little paw imprint here. Oh, we get 2 really stunning shimmers. We get something that's a little bit more like peachy tone, but for the most part, it's a really beautiful neutral palette. And I really rate this really highly. Clio do some amazing things in the K-beauty realm. They are a little bit more expensive than Roman though. But I really think this is excellent quality eyeshadow. If you like that K-beauty vibe, that is. Some people don't understand that K-beauty is just a completely different thing to me. They think that K-beauty isn't good eyeshadow because it's not like Blend Bunny pigmented. But just because something isn't that pigmented doesn't mean it doesn't have to be good eyeshadow, in my opinion. If you want to go for the wash of color that K-beauty has to offer, those are my top 2 picks. Romand and Clio. I also have to talk about this. This is the ColourPop Pretty Please palette. This came out on top when I did my palette ranking for ColourPop, and this is another one where I feel like ColourPop, you hit the nail on the head, and I don't want to rearrange you. Because ColourPop also has magnetic pans, I ended up rearranging most of my color stories, and this one I'm like, yeah, I don't have to. Like the Tartlet in Bloom, it spells it out for you because you get cool tones, rosy tones, and neutrals all in one palette. Each row is a look. You get different textures because these are the Super Shocks, these are metallic high shine, these are all sequin shades, and these are mattes. I think this is a really stunning palette, and a lot of you were recommending me to try this at the time when this first launched because you were like, I've tried this, I think you're gonna love it, and you guys were right because this is now my favorite ColourPop palette. And finally, the final palette I wanted to share with you is this one from Glamlight. I realized I now have 4 Glamlight palettes. Who knew? But the Chucky Crazy in Love I think is my favorite. My love got started with the Ghostface Lives, but then I tried this and was like, I want to throw everything out the window because this is such a good one. Yes, she's deep. It's a very dark color story. But because I get the crease shades that I want, here, here, and here, I can create like a gray look. I could create a look with these reddish tones. I could create a look with these like dark saturated plums. This color story is insane. The shimmers are really good quality. You get plenty of mattes. I think this is a really good glam shop color story, and I think this is the best one. And I now realize how good Glamlight is. I had tried some of their stuff years ago, didn't love it, and had just kind of parked my thoughts on that brand until they started doing these Halloween sort of horror movie collabs. Those I have been enjoying so much. So Glamlight has definitely redeemed themselves. So those were all the eyeshadow palettes I wanted to chat to you about today. So thank you so very much for joining me. I will have any links in the description box down below. So if you want to see swatches and what these look like on my eyes, then you can. Thank you so very much for being here. Thumbs up the video if you liked it. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more by me. I make several videos every single week, so like stay tuned for more. And we're still currently doing eyeshadow palette month in August, so I still have daily videos coming your way as well. Hope to see you in my next one. Bye-bye!